Okay, today we're going to explore a vision to completely remake Indian society, starting right at its foundation, the schools. And this isn't just some casual plan. It's an idea so radical, it's actually bound by a life or death vow. And this is that vow. It comes from the project's founder, Prateeik Prajapati. I mean, think about that for a second. He's not just setting a lofty goal, he's literally binding his very existence to making this mission a reality. So you see this number, 108,000. It's not just some random figure he picked. It represents this massive ambition to build an entire parallel education system from the ground up, one school at a time, until it completely transforms the whole nation. Right, so why this specific number? Why 108,000 schools? Well, it turns out that these schools, or gurukuls as they're called, are really just the first step. They're the foundation for a much, much bigger and more ambitious plan. And this larger plan is called Project Golden Bird. The name itself kind of gives you the goal, right? The idea is to reverse what the founder sees as centuries of cultural decline and bring back a forgotten era of glory. So what does this golden age actually look like? Well, the entire vision is built on restoring what are called the four free pillars of ancient Sanatana culture, which is a term for the eternal traditional way of life. And the logic here is pretty simple. The thinking is, if things like food, education, justice, and healthcare are all guaranteed for free, well, then people are no longer trapped in that day-to-day struggle for survival. They're finally free to pursue a higher, more spiritual purpose. Okay, so you might be wondering, how would one of these gurukuls actually work? I mean, how would it pay the bills? The model is designed to be completely self-sufficient and really deeply woven into village life. And you can forget about subjects like physics or chemistry. The entire curriculum here is built on three pillars: Krishi, which is agriculture, Vanijya, which is commerce, and Goraksha, which is cow protection. So you learn math by managing crops, and you learn biology by caring for animals. Everything is practical. This breakdown of the land use isn't just about farming, it's the economic engine for the whole system. By using local land and local resources, each school becomes its own self-sustaining community, totally independent of any government funding or outside influence. It educates its own kids completely for free. So what's life actually like inside one of these gurukuls? Well, from what we can see, it's designed to be a complete and total rejection of the modern world. The whole point is to prioritize character over career. And this slide right here, this really gets to the absolute heart of the project's philosophy. It's presenting a choice. You have the modern corporate race, which is framed as being stressful and disconnected, versus this other life, a life of simple living and high thinking, one that's focused on community and spirituality. Now, the requirements for getting into one of these so-called ideal gurukuls are, well, they're pretty severe. It's not about paying tuition or having good grades. It's about total surrender of the child, starting before the age of 7 for at least 12 years. And then you read this quote, and it makes that whole idea of surrender brutally clear. The Gurukul assumes total and complete authority over the child. And that's a philosophy that directly challenges pretty much every modern idea we have about education and parental rights. So, a vision this radical, one that's so deeply rooted in ancient scriptures, you know it was bound to raise some tough questions. So now we're going to look at how the project addresses some of the most controversial parts of its plan. One of the biggest points of debate that comes up right away is about the role of girls' education. And according to the project's vision, the educational paths for boys and girls are very distinct, and that's completely intentional. So, as the vision outlines, there are two separate paths. Boys are trained for public, societal roles through things like agriculture and commerce. Girls, on the other hand, are trained for domestic roles, to become, in the project's own words, the ideal housewife and mother. All right. Another deeply contentious issue is how the project approaches the traditional Varna system, which today is often understood as the caste system. And here's where a critical distinction is made. In the top tier, most traditional gurukuls, access to certain sacred teachings, like the Vedas, follows the principle of janmana, which means by birth. So this means some roles are determined by your lineage, not by your individual talent or interest, a practice that's justified by a very strict reading of scripture.
And this really brings us to the fundamental question at the absolute core of Project Golden Bird. Is this a blueprint for a better, more spiritual society? Or is it an attempt to retreat from the modern world? It's a vision that really forces all of us to ask, what, if anything, from the ancient past truly holds the answers for our future?